Thanks for joining this London South East webinar. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Donald Leggett, Head of Investor Relations. We've held many actual events at Brewers Hall. Now it's time to welcome you all online. Tonight, we have three interesting companies from very different sectors presenting. That's Orphan, 7digital, and SolGold. The usual format allows for an 18-minute presentation followed by 10 minutes of questions and answers. After each presentation, there'll be an opportunity to ask questions of management. Just look for the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen and submit your questions. And as moderator, I'll put them to the speakers. We'll send you a copy of the slide pack for Orphan and 7digital tomorrow, and there are no slides for SolGold. And tonight, you can check out each company's fundamentals on the lse.co.uk website, and perhaps even leave a message on the company chat boards when you're there. Orphan, here we go. Our first company tonight is Orphan, the rapidly growing pharmaceutical services company, which is a world leader in the testing of vaccines and antivirals through the use of challenge trials. ORPH has a market capitalization of around £110 million, and Executive Chairman Cathal Friel joins us from Dublin to talk us through the latest contract wins and underlying strategy. Over to you, Cathal.
Donald, it's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on tonight. So I presume the first thing I should do is share my screen, shall I? Is that the plan?
That's a good idea.
Okay, let's get the presentation. There we go. View full screen. There we go.
It's looking good, Cathal.
Is that clear on your screen, Donald?
Yeah, it's clear on my screen. I'm loving it.
Okay, well listen, thank you for having me on, and I'll bring people through this presentation, but rather than laboriously, I'll touch the high points, maybe starting with this slide. Look, the management team. Basically, the only two new faces here are myself and my colleague Leo Toole. Basically, we brought over two companies, two struggling name companies, one Venn Life Science, we acquired that June last year, and then hVIVO end of January this year. And look, there's no rocket science what we're doing. These are struggling companies. They've never made profit in their lives. They have bloody good revenues, and even better, they had fantastic staff. Andrew Catchpole, there for 14 years, our Chief Scientific Officer, Martin Johnson, Senior Medical Officer, Adam French. And really all we've done, we removed, let's say, two CEOs, two COOs, and two CFOs, and freed up the real staff, the long-serving, what we call long-suffering people, to run the business, with myself and Leo as very hands-on executive chairman, which really means CEO, and to Leo minding the money. So look, we're in good shape. We were lucky. We acquired what was the world leader in the testing of vaccines and antivirals at the end of January. The world didn't want to know about that then. However, 2-3 months later, it got much more interesting to be the world leader in that fast-moving niche. Look, what we are, you've rightly said, Donald, we're a fast-growing niche pharma services player. So rather than getting into that, what is it? We basically test vaccines and antivirals. How do we do it? Mainly the two companies, the main one, and we keep in the branding, we keep the logos, we keep the emails, is hVIVO, based in East London. It's been doing this for close to 30 years. Prior Coronation was called Retroscreen, and before that, some of the staff went back as far as the old 1947 Salisbury Flu Clinic. A lot of history. And look, basically, we test vaccines and antivirals. So that's a pretty interesting space to be in the current market. We've also Venn, fits like a glove together because it does preclinical and it provides our data management, biostats, and medical writing as part of the hVIVO offerings. This kind of summarized really where we are. Look, this time last year, our market cap wasn't that much more than 15 million. And guess what? At the end of June this year, we've 15 million cash in the bank. I know people will say, right, interims are due out tomorrow morning. So let's dwell a little bit on that. This year is a year of two halves. The interims are not going to blow the lights off, or as they say in the French connection, blow the doors off. But the first half was integrating, putting it together. And all I can say is that we said we make it profitable. Q4, we're absolutely going to be profitable this year. Okay, we could have been profitable in Q3. We took a risk and spent some money on being the only party in the world doing COVID human challenge studies. And there was a bit of a leak in the media in the last week saying we're nearly there. We're getting pretty close. It's a bit like driving the car. Daddy, are we nearly there? We're very nearly there. There will be an announcement, hopefully, pretty soon as regards that. But all I'm saying is that, look, the cash is growing, and by Q4, we're very much on target to be profitable. And that cash balance, the 20th of June, at the end of our first half, will be very substantially bigger by the year end. And let's see how big that's going to be. Say the year is going to be a year of two halves, and basically the first half was integration, putting it together. Bear in mind, we took over hVivo. It had no contracts. It had just landed up in the rocks. We're good. What are we good at? Signing contracts and getting it going. And really the staff are delivering them. So we've had a very good first half of the year. And now we're 3 months into the second half of the year. And I think we'll come to that in a minute. We've been signing lots of contracts. They're highly cash generative because our contracts, the human challenge study contracts, we get 25 to 30% cash up front. We signed a contract on Monday this week for 4.3 million. Guess what? 30% of cash comes in with that. That's 1.2 million. We signed the 4 million one last month with Pfizer. And again, 1.5 million cash comes. So yeah, look, it's a nice business. And I don't want to dwell too much on it. We're in good shape. Myself and my co-founder still 19%. We're locked up for 3 years. That's 1 year done. 2 more years to go. And with Invesco at 7.88. We raised 12 million at the end of May. Massively oversubscribed. Some of those shareholders are all institutions have been top sliced a little bit, taking some off the table. Institutions tend to do that if they can get a quick 30%. Naturally, they're going to take it. But a lot of them are sitting and holding tight. So to see what we develop in the year ahead. Look, not going to dwell too much on this other than look, for anybody who looks at, we've had a lot of announcements, almost a 4 million contract every month now for several months in a row. The main thing that we're guiding on the announcement yesterday morning, and this is what people want to hear, is that we have this East London facility. It has never been more than 20-25% full in the past, ever. And so we inherited it, or we acquired it in January, when it basically had no contracts. It basically finished a large Merck study, and guess what, in February, there was nothing coming through. But we very quickly signed contracts, and in yesterday's announcement, we said we're now block booked out for the first time, 12 months. And within a month, we hope to have that facility booked out solid to the end of next year. That's a hell of a turnaround. Now, is that us being lucky? Is it the pandemic helping us? It's a combination, but very importantly, it's been getting deals done and making it happen. And our deals do convert to cash very quickly then. They're all 3 to 6 months deals. So that's a cash generative business. I'm not going to dwell on this. Look, basically, we see we do a lot. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's a year of two halves. We've done everything. We've transformed the business. It will be profitable in Q4. And we are now the world leader in the test of vaccines and antivirals. So a nice place to be. I'm not going to bore people. I think there's a lot of press. And the editorial in FT on Saturday, I was very proud. That editorial said the British government's going to be doing human challenge studies. I think of myself, my colleague, Andrew Catchpole didn't say on the 7th of March we were going to drive human challenge studies. I don't think the editorial would have been there. I don't think the British government would have found anybody to do it, only for hVivo. And the beauty about challenge studies, you can really speed up the testing of vaccines. Vaccines involve big, tens of thousands phase 3 studies. A human challenge study involves 50 people, of which everyone gets infected with whatever the virus is, and you can guarantee whether that vaccine's effective or not in a very short period of time. So more of that. Basically, this deck is straight from a website, so people who want to read more about challenge study models, it's all there. Lab services, again, hVivo have this fantastic lab, and really what we've done there, we've reached out, and now we're getting lots of lab assay, lab services work, and everybody's wondering, how's COVID-19 antibody testing? Well, we're doing both antibody testing and we're doing PCR testing. So yeah, that's rolling out nicely. In the first half of the year, we only got the kit in May, installed in June. So in the interims, there is no testing. But the second half of the year, that is going rather nicely. But I say the big focus is on these monster contracts. And we're looking to have our challenge study unit booked out 2 years in advance. But everything else, there's laboratory services, complements it really well, high margin. The antibody testing works really well. And the PCR testing works really well. So it fits together like a wonderful jigsaw at the moment. Again, we were building an open Orphan, the genomic health database. Now we're basically with hVIVO, with the world's largest infectious disease progression database. So we're merging that and integrating that with our health data platform. And you'll see in here lots more of that. The big part of that, we have been approached. We didn't go to them. So again, is that lucky? We didn't actually think about it, but they came to us. A number of the big wearables have come and said, can we get access to your infectious disease data? We said, we'll be announcing one way or another, hopefully before Christmas, some transactions dealing with the large wearable companies in the world. Because if we have that database built up over a long period in time, most of that data is in freezers up in our biobank in Eli, with tens of thousands of samples come back a long time. So that is something we're sitting on and we will capitalize upon. Leo, during our interim announcement tomorrow morning, we'll talk through. We've broken well through this operational leverage. We've taken out a lot of the overheads, and guess what? We put an awful lot more revenue in. So problem with hVIVO, the problem with Venn before, they just weren't, the overheads were too high, the revenue is too low. And I think it's clear from all our announcements in recent days and weeks, we've sorted both. And say we've a habit of losing CEOs, losing COOs, losing CFOs, I believe. They always say too many chiefs and not enough Indians. That's the problem with these businesses. So a lot of the chiefs have departed, but on good terms. We're good at moving people on in a gentlemanly manner. And we've allowed the Indians now to, let's say, take flight and drive this business as they should. Not going to bore people, lots of contract wins. Anybody looks at RNS, we're doing an awful lot of them. And we're very lucky, but look, if you haven't contract wins, you basically haven't a business. So we're making it really clear that you have to focus on contracts. And if you'd ask me what goes wrong with I've been a prolific investor in small AIM companies for years, and some have worked well, some haven't worked so well. I think the recurring theme, what goes wrong, I think management team come in and think it's their company. A former company I formed, the CEO told me, this is my company. And I said, no, Joe, this is the public's company. So like it's a learning process for a lot of the management team. And so to make clear to all our staff, we put our salaries up on the website under Open Orphan investor section, corporate governance. You'll see my salary. I'm in a very reasonable salary, 40,000 pounds a year, no pension, no funnies, and a 25% bonus. My colleague, the only other executive director, Leo Toole, is the same package. He's a small bit of a pension contribution. I'm older, I'm 55. My pension should be sorted at this stage. So we want to be very open. All the other directors' remunerations is there. So I think, look, as regards contract wins, we're focused on those, but really we're focusing also on managing that overhead, that people don't go wild and thinking it's our company, it's our shareholders' company. This pipeline, I think anybody who doubted it, it's materializing. And all I'd say is there's a year of two halves. The first half, getting it together, and the second half, there's an awful lot more to come. So we're guiding the market. We'd like to see our facility full for all of next year and the rest of this year. And when we land the large COVID trials, we will be making use of an alternate facility. So all going well, we'll be running 2 quarantine facilities very soon. Global awareness, look, the world didn't know, and being honest, this time last year I had to Google what is a human challenge study model when we were looking at hVIVO. That's how bad it was. Now I think I talk about it. I talk to a lot of customers, I sell a lot. But even the world has woken up this time last year. My kids, I have an 8-year-old, 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, didn't know what a vaccine and antiviral is. And a year later, the little devils seem to know all about, as most kids do. They know what a vaccine are and they know what an antiviral is. So look, it's a good space to be in. We have a very solid business now. There's nothing to do with COVID. I keep saying we're very lucky. We're kind of COVID central, but really importantly, Open Orphan has a non-COVID business. All of the contracts announced this year so far, bar one, was non-COVID. We have lots more contracts coming through, non-COVID. So we've got 2 businesses. If COVID disappeared, as we all would hope to do tomorrow, we still have a really nice human challenge study model that's going to continue growing and growing, because we're entering the decade now of vaccine development. We've had a decade or 2 of oncology. This is a decade of vaccine development. And to develop vaccines, you need human challenge study models. In conclusion, we're a niche, fast growing, and we are going to be profitable in Q4. We have a very high margin. There's no good being a world leader in something if you don't charge good margins. We have a broad customer base, we have great growth opportunities, and we have lab services to capitalize upon everything that's going on. That's the shareholder price. Look, it's a bit out of date, but that's where we are. Most of the founders were all locked up for 36 months, 2 years ago. And let me bring you to the last thing I'd like to say. I'll hand over to Donald for Q&A. Look, we have some non-core assets. Look, we're very much now, I think we've got the business fixed. It's firing on all four cylinders. We've a really motivated, people thought you couldn't take out. We got rid of 4 of the 6 Venn offices. We got rid of most of the entire management team. And guess what? The Venn staff have never been working harder and writing new contracts and doing business. Likewise, for the team in London, they're doing fabulous work. We have a couple of non-core assets, particularly Immutex, and we've said so often, we've set a target between them, we're big in the targets to Christmas to monetize Immutex. That either we'll sell it or we'll reverse it into another vehicle. But it means between now and Christmas, the shareholders are going to get something for the stake they own. It's not ours in that one. And we've got the repurposed immune modulator and prep pharma to work on as well. In addition, we've made clearly to a large wearables transaction, and then we roll into next year. So I think, Donald, that kind of summarizes, hopefully I didn't go too fast, a whistle-top tour of where we've got. Somebody said there's a year of 2 halves, a lot done and a lot more to do between now and Christmas.
Thank you, Cathal. That was fantastic as ever. We've got lots of questions. Stephen Ratcliffe and AF Ajemi, both asking about progress with the government contract, which has been seen in the press. You touched on it. So where are you with Boris?
Government contracts, I think, as well. Somebody somewhere leaked it last week. It wasn't us, despite the fact our name featured prominently in most of the business papers around the world last week. But look, I think the best thing we do is we did a leak announcement holding statement that said, look, we are in advanced negotiations, not just with the government, but with pharma companies for the development of a COVID-19 challenge study trials. We did say on the 7th of March, we were going to do it. I did say on the 7th of March, I was going to be volunteer number 1. And I know I frightened you earlier, Donald. I think my wife is delighted. But look, human challenge studies, they're interesting, is the way I put them. For me to get the team behind us and to get our shareholders and particularly get our board, they say, Cathal, is that not dangerous? I said, well, no, I've looked at it. I'm happy to be a volunteer. I gather the ethics panels, the medics won't let me do it. I'm 55. You have the 18 to 55 to do a normal challenge study. I think the view is the current COVID-19 one will be 18 to 24-year-olds, 18 to 26-year-olds, where the chances of an adverse reaction is very, very minimal. But I keep saying I remain within the company a willing and able volunteer number 1 to do the COVID, because I think this is something, look, we're in a pandemic and everybody's got to do their bit. And human challenge studies will speed up the development of vaccine. It's easy producing a vaccine, but somebody somewhere's got to test it. And
you did say that your wife was quite keen that you did it.
Yeah, I think it's a joys of having young kids and a young wife. Maybe she might think, pop the old boy off. But my view is there's no chance as part of a challenge study the old boy going anywhere. Okay, I believe it's actually, look, I run it. I look, it's actually my view.
There's a serious question here though. Your 24-bed facility is close to capacity. In fact, you're reveling in the fact that it's full for the next year or 2. So how do you expand that capacity?
Look, it's unique. It's a 24-bed one. I think we're indicating that if we have an announcement in the very near future to do COVID-19, we will probably have access to an alternate facility. That's all we can say. The COVID-19, because we're booked up for almost a year, going on 18 months in advance, we've no room in there, which is a good place to be. But I think we're advanced discussions. And anybody who scanned the press carefully last week, the name was mentioned, but I don't think I should say it. We're in advanced discussions of getting use of an alternate facility. It wasn't used before for challenge studies, but it's appropriate. It is a negative air pressure quarantine facility within the Greater London area. That's all I can say.
So it's actually not proving as hard as you might have thought to get a new quarantine facility.
Well, it's not the new quarantine facility. The issue with challenge studies is you've got to manufacture the challenge virus, recruit the volunteers, do the characterization study. So having the facility is only one part of almost like a hand, one finger of the hand. You've got to find the other 4 fingers. So the 4 fingers is what we have. So yeah, so look, I'd imagine going in next year, we'll be running 2 facilities.
Grand. Now, Sukman Gruel asks a very interesting question. I think to sum it up, I think he says, are there barriers to entry with these quarantine facilities, or can lots of other people actually develop them as well?
Look, if you look at our, I flicked over in the deck, but look, the barriers to entry doing a challenge study, first you have to have a quarantine facility. We have one, East London. There is one other in the Greater London area. There's not an obvious one that's rarely been used. It's never been used for challenge studies. But the barrier to entry is not a lot of people will build a bespoke facility. That's barrier one. Barrier two, you've got to develop the challenge virus and the challenge study model, first of all. And we've said we've 25 million investment in challenge study models. We inherited from the previous management team and the previous shareholders. But the bigger, trickier one, then you've got, look, put as challenge studies, loads of academics through the world do them. Academic universities have been lots of them done, but they do them in a small way, 5, 10, 15 people. They can't recruit. It's sometimes a screening for an influenza challenge study. It's for every 250 volunteers we draw blood from that we screen, we get one to fit the challenge. So we've got a low cost, high throughput way of screening volunteers, getting loads of them through that no other facility in the world was able to replicate. And more importantly, we can run the challenge study, we can test the vaccines and produce the results on time that big pharma wants. So look, there's no rocket science. Lots of academics around the world, even here in the UK, lots of academics have run small challenge studies, but nobody can scale it up. It's one of these things, it's a bit of science, it's a bit of art, it's a bit of experience. And really importantly, we've a long history, 35 years of never having an adverse reaction. So if it's the British government, or if it's Pfizer, or if it's GSK, or whoever wants to run a challenge, the big thing, oh, have you ever had an adverse reaction? The last thing you want to do when you're testing a virus is for anybody to get sick. And that's where I'm so happy and confident being volunteer number one. We've never in 30 years had anybody even to get remotely sick within the HVAC facility. That's a pretty safe place to be.
Okay, I have a random bag of questions now. We've lost our flow, but nevertheless, they're interesting questions. And John Cardozi asks, do you have any plans to list ORPH on NASDAQ?
We've made clear in that last slide I did, look, we're dual strategy. Look, again, you can't depend on one. It's a bit like closing deals. One option is to reverse it into a NASDAQ SPAC. That's a special acquisition vehicle. The better option could be just sell it. There are 51% shareholders of Seek Group. I think they've been long suffering. They're in 10, 12 years. They've seen nothing for the money. If we can't do something with 2 vaccines in the current environment, we should be shot. So look, we've given ourselves to Christmas to monetize that asset. We have to run multiple strategies. One is reversing to NASDAQ. The best one, my view, would be to get cash. I call it folding stuff and hand that back to shareholders. I made clear recently, there is no more fundraising in this company. The fundraising is over. We have 14 or 15 million at the end of June on that slide deck. And I made clear by Christmas, we're going to have an awful lot more than that because we're generating cash. We're getting big upfronts. So the next transaction will be handing cash back to shareholders. That'll be a dividend, but more importantly, that'll be handing the monetization of Immutex back between now and Christmas, hopefully.
So what would your time frame be for exiting the business?
Don't like talking about exits anymore. I put the business together, I said a year ago, if we could get it to 60 or 70 million market cap, we'd sell it for 100. I think if somebody came and offered 100 today, nobody listening tonight would sell for 100 for a market cap. Look, I think the big one is we're guiding the market. Can we grow the share price by 50% every 6 months? And can we double it every year? If we can do that every year, it negates the necessity for people wanting to sell. And we also want to keep high daily liquidity, and that's where I do a lot of investor engagement. So if we keep growing the share price by 50% every 6 months, doubling it every 12 months, that's not a bad start.
Okay, let me quickly spin back to this. Oh, here we go. Andrew Bain, when should we expect an update from you on the sale or monetization of Immutex? There you go, you're just nodding to that.
Yeah, so we just said the update in Immutex is you've had it. We've given ourselves a target of Christmas. We will sell it or list it between now and Christmas. The shares, whatever we get, will be dividend species to all open Orphan shareholders, because at the moment, I call it a stranded asset. It's trapped on our balance sheet, 49% of something they can't get hands on. So we've given ourselves till Christmas to deliver the results in that regards.
Okay, you've got so many exciting things going on that sometimes I think the genomic health database gets a wee bit forgotten about. But have you, Dave G says, have you offered that to the government because they want to be a global leader in genomics?
I think the bigger, we're still growing that, but what we said in my slide earlier, we already have the world's largest database of infectious disease progression. What does that mean? We have the world's largest database of what happens when a virus is put into the human body. That's all sitting in freezers. I was up there last week in Ely. It's an hour and a half north of London, in a whole series of freezers, tens of thousands of samples. So we're taking that. So rather than spend hard yards trying to completely build the genomic database, we have the platform. We're going to supplement it with the world's largest database of disease progression data. And that is what the wearable people are after, because then in 6 months' time, your Apple or those little phones can tell you, beep, beep, we think you might have X, we think you might have influenza, we think you might have COVID, you need to go to the doctor. So that's where we've brought the genomics. So it's basically we've pivoted, let's say, more to the infectious diseases. We haven't left the genomics, because that's still really important. I think we've all seen the government now is focused on genomics. Anything we do, we're a British company, we want to do in partnership with the British government. So I think it's really, really important. Partnership is the word of the game in our business. We're a small little company, we're growing very fast, and we want to share what we have with every and anybody, but at a price. We'll have to get paid for anything we have. We don't give anything away for free.
Okay. And this one follows on from Stephen Ratcliffe again. Are any wearable companies submitting bids for your data yet?
We've only brought this up in recent weeks. I said between now and Christmas. So again, we're a public company, we couldn't answer that. All I say, we've given ourselves the run between now and Christmas to, let's say, announce a deal. So that's set ourselves a reasonable hurdle.
Okay, so work in progress on that one.
Absolutely.
Okay, a question from me. You've signed up so many contracts. Might it be worth taking breath and consolidating all those contracts for us? Talk us through the contracts, how much money in broad terms, but also tell us the margin that you would expect to make on those contracts, and refer it back to the company as it was. And are you more profitable or less profitable in the business that you do these days?
First of all, bear in mind, the business never did more than 25% utilization in the past. We're now at 100%, and we'll drive the 100% for the next year. That's step one. Look, bear in mind, when the interims come out tomorrow, we inherited two heavily loss-making businesses that never made a profit. Venn never made a profit. HV never made a profit ever in their life. We're now seeing the integration of the two of them. We will be profitable in Q4. That's step one. The way we've done that, we've taken the overheads out and we've increased the revenues. But yeah, on the interims tomorrow, I think we'll go through a summary of those deals. And what we're saying, it's a year of two halves. First half consolidation, knocking into the shape, and second half delivering the deals. But the beauty about it, when we sign the deals such as yesterday's, it was a large German vaccine company, well, kind of Scandinavian German. They paid us a third up front, and we've got it delivered, and it'll be all finished. And we said by the end of Q1, maybe earlier. So they're about 5-6 months start to finish. They're very cash generative. They don't take years to deliver. Challenge studies, that's why they're so attractive, the vaccine companies, start to finish 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Okay, there's lots and lots of questions. What should my last question be, I wonder? Okay, here we go. If you haven't sold the company, where do you see the share price in 2 years' time, please?
Well, I think the simple example, and Donald, we're trying to say, we don't want people, look, there's been a COVID bubble. Some companies up 5x. Cathal, what did you do wrong? You've only doubled or tripled the share price. We IPO'd at 5.7p. We're about, was it 17, 18p? That's a 3x. That's not bad. But we're trying to guide the market. We want people to be careful and never be afraid to take profits, I would say. Look, we're guiding, if we can raise the share price 50%, we're in a fast growing market. That's not bad. I double it every 12 months. So the answer, the question is, if we can double it in the next 12 months, that's pretty good going. And that's probably not that hard. We avoid talking about the sell option. We have a lot of staff who wouldn't like to hear that. And I think the halfway house, if we keep pushing the share price, if we deliver the results, I believe the share price will follow, which means 50% every 6 months, doubling every 12 months, keeping good liquidity. It's not Hotel California. You check in, you buy the shares like a lot of AIM companies, you can't get out. We're keeping decent liquidity. People can take their profits, trade out. But we're encouraging people to stay with us for the ride. We'll engage fully. let them know where we're going, and try and avoid any surprises. That's what we're trying to do.
Well, you're doing pretty well in terms of getting people to stay with you for the ride. You've got 479 participants watching you at the moment, Cathal. So on that happy note, we'd like to say thank you for joining us from Dublin, and have a good evening.
Donald, thank you very much, but I think you're probably all here to watch the next two. I'm a shareholder in both of the next two companies, so I think we've got to share that love with our other two ones, because they're two fascinating companies coming up as well. Thank you very much.
I hope you're following both those companies on London Southeast, Cathal.
Absolutely. Where else? Nowhere else.
Good man. Okay, and we're looking for 7digital now. That's our next man. Hello.
Good evening.
Paul.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you. And you.
Good stuff.
This is a bit like Eurovision Song Contest, isn't it, Paul?
Isn't it just? Yeah.
Isn't it just?
It is. I won't
So
start singing there, don't worry.
So let me give you a brief introduction. 7digital is a streaming music business which believes it has found the sweet spot in the digital world. Its ambition is to become the global leader in B2B end-to-end digital music solutions. Paul Langworthy has been CEO for just over a year, and he joins us to present the strategy, which post-pandemic now includes home fitness, artist monetization, and social media. 7dig have just raised £6 million to pursue that strategy. And here we are, the one and only Paul Langworthy to talk us through it all.
Good evening. Mike, I think you're going to put the presentation up for me. Thank you very much indeed. So yeah, this evening, I really just want to talk through a little bit about the journey we've been on, but the journey we're about to go on and are going on and embarking on, because that's what I think is really exciting, and I hope will excite you. So just moving through a couple of slides to what our mission is and why we're here. Our raison d'etre is really about enabling growth and innovation in the music industry. And we talk about enabling growth and innovation because we're not excited about the 300 million people that pay £9.99 or $9.99 for a subscription service with Spotify or Apple or Amazon. That's not what we're interested in. That's not the market we're playing in. There's going to be super growth in that area. That's great. What we're really interested in is serving the new emerging opportunities in the music space. And there are many, and there are plenty. And there are 3.5 billion people listening to music in one way, shape or form for free every week. And that is the opportunity for this business, enabling new business models, emerging models for enterprises, yes, but also for startup and innovative companies as well. And we're doing that with our leading global music platform. And it is a global music leading platform. If we just go to the next slide, I can elaborate why. So to be able to fulfill our mission, you have to have a global catalog and a global platform in music. It is an absolute must-have. We have over 80 million tracks in our database, a lot of high resolution audio as well. We're ingesting some 1 million plus tracks per month. I think a couple of weeks ago, we did 500,000 new tracks in 1 week. So an enormous amount of content getting generated around the globe. And we're ingesting all of that. We get that from all of the record labels, majors, indies. So any new release that is published, we will have in our platform. And we're getting that from some 300,000 different labels and so on across the planet. So a truly global catalog of music within our platform. And our platform itself is a truly global platform. We have an SLA of 99.95%, but actually we had the last quarter and a half were 100% uptime guaranteed, which even Spotify I don't think has. We've got some 45 customers, 82 different countries we're serving content to through our customer base. So a truly global catalog using Amazon Web Services and Google Cloud Services as our application architecture. Moving on, Mike. I think I want to give you a little bit about the context of the industry before we go into our journey. If you just think about as little as 5 years ago within the music industry, you'd have found a fairly even sort of distribution split of revenue across music download sales. Streaming was obviously becoming prevalent. Live, it was a really sort of even mix of revenue split across the business. And in a short period of time, streaming has now completely overtaken downloads. It's killed the download music revenue within the industry. It's downloads, I think, is falling off a cliff more quickly than even CDs were. So it's changed very dramatically. However, very recently, COVID has absolutely changed everything. COVID hit in the UK, where we're based. It hit in March, but it hit the globe around the same time, and we've seen an enormous shift in difference in human behaviour and how music has impacted human behaviour or supplemented human behaviour in relation to COVID. So what we've seen is the live performance market has literally died on its knees. No one's going touring, no artists are performing, which is such a vital revenue stream for them. And no one on this call should have been to a gig at least since March, and if you have, you're breaking the law. But that part of the industry is on its knees. Social media platforms and the use of music within social media has grown enormously. And you're finding now artists are using social media as a really important engagement tool with their fan base. And it's actually outgrown streaming services. I don't know about you, but at the beginning of this COVID world that we're now living in, the strange world we're living in, was thinking that when it started to bite, that actually we'd see an enormous uptick in streaming. But actually, no. If you think about where most people listen to music, it's in the car or on the train or on the tube on the way to work. So actually, we didn't see this enormous uplift of streaming usage in established subscription streaming services, but social media absolutely did. There was a huge amount of growth. And, in this post-pandemic, as I like to use that term, fairly apocalyptic term for it, but in this post-pandemic world, we stopped fairly quickly and realized that this is going to have a huge impact to our business. But actually from this is a huge amount of opportunity for us to really tap into and help enable people use music within these different areas of behavior change and where music has become more prominent. So moving on, I think our financials were released today, as you may well have seen. And I do just want to touch a little bit around the past. I'm very much, as a chief executive in Post for the past sort of 12 months, I'm very much focused on the future and taking the business forward. And that's really been what I've come into the business to do, is to really help transform its fortunes and kick us on. But we do need to understand a little bit about where we've come from. And we've spent the last year really focusing on creating a super lean, laser focused business. Our costs were way too high. We lost some big revenue at the beginning of 2019. And we had issued announcements to the market around insolvency at the time, and the share price crashed. Everyone's followed the story, right? So I'm sure I don't need to repeat it. So what we've really done is focused on transforming the way that we operate this business, and that has been largely focusing on costs. We've taken a lot of staff costs out. We've reduced overall costs by around 60%, I think, run rate versus 2018 end of. We've moved office, and in the process saved some £600,000 per annum. I know some of you on this call have attended our previous office, which used to get a few raised eyebrows, given it was in a rather expensive part of Moorgate. So we've moved up to Camden, saved a load of money. We've got rid of a load of old technology that used to serve some legacy radio clients. Yeah, there was revenue, but actually when you're managing legacy technology, it's expensive. You need domain knowledge. You have a larger tech estate. We've cleared all of that out and really focused on what we want to do in terms of taking the business forward. We've got new finance systems in place, way more financial management rigor and governance in place within the business versus where we were a year ago. And we simplified the structure of the organization after various different M&A transactions that we've had. It was far too cluttered, too busy. We've really stripped that back. So a big transformation of the underlying operations. And then moving on, Mike, now, it then became about positioning our business for the future and how we're going to take things forward. And the single biggest shift that we have made that has enabled us to take so much cost out is moving from what's really a bit of a bespoke development house to a much more productized outfit, selling the same technology over and over again. And anyone that knows technology, if you're building specifically to customer requirements, yes, the revenue can look nice, the number can look nice, but actually it always takes longer to build. It always costs a little bit more than you thought. The scope will always creep. It's more technology to support. It's more people required to manage that on an ongoing basis. We've really moved away from that and are really focused in on making sure our platform is highly productized and can support the most broad set of use cases and business models that exist within the music space. And that's been a huge, big shift for us. As I've already said, we're using cloud technology, Amazon Web Services and Google We think we have the global leading platform compared to our competitors that we have had a look at. We've grown our client base over the last 12 months. You know, in spite of the difficult position the company has been in the past, we're getting better at marketing strategies for the company. We've got a new commercial team within the business, and we've got much more professionalism and rigor around our pitching process. Our documentation looks way more polished, and that's really yielding results. And in terms of marketing, I think what you're going to see is that as our story develops and we get a little bit more of a spring in our step and start to deliver some of the success that we're seeing now, you're going to see us, you know, talk much more proudly about where we're going and the journey we're on. And we're looking forward to communicating much more aggressively through the B2B marketing channels that we're working through to get our story out there and be proud of what it is we're doing and make a name for ourselves. We will continue to sign what I call traditional B2B music services deals. You know, we've signed Jazz and expanding contracts such as Jazz as we've announced. But what we're really now looking at as we move forward is these three emerging areas in a post-COVID world, and that's social media, home fitness, and artist monetization. And these three domains are really very exciting for us. As I say, we stopped fairly early on into COVID, realized that our pipeline was impacted, never mind the global company was affecting us. A lot of people were pausing and stopping, thinking, okay, what are we going to do here? And weren't ready to commit to a music strategy at the time. But what we thought was, hang on, we've got some opportunities to help some domains here that we are going to see some growth within. And that's these three. So we're going to move through them very quickly. So Mike, if you can go to the next slide for me. So social media. Absolutely no secret that music is critical to the success of growth within social media. 9 out of 10 social media users are following music through posts. There's an enormous amount of people following social media for the purposes of music. So not only are fans using social media to express themselves and engage with their families and friends, but you're also finding artists come to social media platforms and create original content for it because they're seeing it as the most direct way of engaging with their fan base. TikTok is clearly a paradigm game changer, a paradigm shifter as far as how music and social media interact with fans. You know, they have their issues, as I think everybody is aware. And as far as 7digital is concerned, we have a platform, a global catalog. We have the scale, we have the rights and the reporting capability to be able to serve the social media space. We announced recently our deal with Triller. Triller is an absolute on the top table of social media platforms. If some of you hadn't heard about it until we'd announced the deal, be in no doubt, these guys are, you know, at the center of social media culture and music culture now, a very significant player. I think up to something like 70 million monthly active users and growing very, very quickly. Some of the largest social media influencers are moving from TikTok to Triller, and that's obviously great for us. So I think the important thing around social media and particular our deals with social media platforms is that what we do here is by offering a global platform that they can access content through, we are able to charge an access fee, a setup fee, and then we have a monthly recurring fee that we charge the client. That's in the tens of thousands per client. And then on top of that, we have usage of content. So as people download tracks to create a post, that download comes from our platform, and they then post the video out to the social media market and to the fan base. So we're getting a kickback from Triller each time a user downloads a track to make a video post. I can't go into more details than that in terms of specifics, but there is that nice sort of blend of upfront fee, tens of thousands on the monthlies, and then we get a usage kickback based on content that's taken from our platform. And the great thing about this is that the gross profit on this is about 90%. You know, our product is so highly productized, our platform is so highly productized, we're operating at around about 90% gross profit margin. And I'd like to see a couple of million of new revenue in social media next year alone, and a 90% gross profit. You know, that's a fantastic place for us to be. And bearing in mind that, as we've already committed to the market, we're hoping to get to profitability by the end of this year. adding that kind of gross profit for those sort of sizes of revenue increases in this one vertical alone, that's really, really, really exciting. So moving on from social to fitness, home fitness. Wow, this has just gone bananas. It's in all my 20 years operating around the music industry and media, I've never seen anything blow up so aggressively as this particular market. It's a $94 billion business globally. It is had a shot in the arm as a result of COVID. Absolutely no doubt a shot in the arm. I think what you've got to realize is that it was already growing. Peloton obviously having a lot of success, but absolutely we have seen a huge amount of new people come to the market now as a result of COVID. Human behavior has changed. It's not a temporary change. When COVID goes back to normal, that everyone just returns to how it was. Ain't going to happen. People are going to have a different work-life balance. They're working out at home as well as working at home. And the fitness industry is really seeing that. This is great for us. Why? Because music is such an integral part of the fitness experience. It's when you're running, when you're swimming, when you're jogging, when you're whatevering, having a drumbeat of motivation with your favorite tunes, whatever it might well be, or a live class environment, music is everything. And these companies need music to make their experience as rich as possible, and as vibrant and as exciting and as engaging as possible. And we at 7digital, we have a product for this market. So not only do we have the catalog, but we've also got the rights around this catalog. Really importantly, understand that you can, if you, as Peloton were, sued $150 million because they weren't using fully licensed catalog. We have that capability within our platform. We're also providing curation tools so that these fitness companies can create playlists, they can create track lists for their live classes and broadcast them to their user base. And we announced our deal last week, obviously, a couple of weeks ago now with Apex, who are a new entrant to the market, who we're really excited about, actually. It's a similar model, big setup fee, monthly recurring in the tens of thousands, and then usage based on content being streamed back from our platform. These companies are not small bootstrap startups. This industry is full of really, really exciting technology companies, actually, fitness technology, and multi-billion valuation companies, and we've got some really, really interesting ones in our pipeline, as we do within social, that we're looking to be able to communicate to you soon. But very exciting space for us. I think we're going to do a lot of deals in this, more deals in this area than social media. That's what I think. And I think the value of social might be higher, but we're going to see a lot of activity in home fitness, and we're going to dominate the home fitness market and the fit tech market for music. So very exciting. And then thirdly, the third area we're really excited about is artist monetization. And I think well, we've already said this in this presentation, artists can't perform. It's such an important revenue stream for them. Lots of people can't pay their bills. There's lots of destitution stories around this. It's quite sad and tragic, actually. But this industry, is in big trouble. The live industry is in trouble. We have an opportunity to help artists monetize their art again. Lots of artists don't make any money from Spotify. They don't make any money from Apple. Medium-sized, largers, a little bit. Yeah, obviously the big boys make lots, but lots of people simply don't. And we launched with eMusic, a live music streaming platform. And what we're doing is we're taking a live stream from the artist studio, from their front room, from their kitchen, could be wherever, or in a venue, and creating a virtual venue experience around it, where you can buy a ticket, and the artist monetizes that ticket. They get revenue from you as a fan through that ticket purchase. But you can also do things like VIP tickets, so you can do a Q&A with the artists and your fans afterwards, or watch them backstage, or watch them do the warm-up. These are all different ways that an artist can monetize their fan base, but also having things like merchandise in there, physical merchandise. We're looking at something like digital merchandise, which is massive in China, online badges and memes that you can share with your friends and your family, and with your artists themselves, with other fans. As far as the B2B opportunity with this is also enormous. We're seeing a huge amount of interest from venues, from retailers, from companies that want to add and sprinkle a little bit of magic fairy dust around their brand, and can really see live music as a way of doing that. So this is a hugely multi-dimensional revenue opportunity for 7digital through our partnership with eMusic. So very exciting stuff. And we've got some emerging artists signed up that we've already done some performances for, and we've got some big artists as well. We've got the big EDM act that I won't name. I think it's got the 7th most viewed video on YouTube ever, some 25 million followers. And you know, if he was to do a gig and only 100,000 of those would come, and 7D was able to take $2 or $3 a pop for every ticket, we'd be in really rude health. So a very exciting space that is solving a real problem for the industry as well.
1 more minute, Paul. 1 more minute.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, well, I think actually, if we could go to the next slide, I think I've covered them off. And I'm sorry to rush through them, but there was a lot to cover. So I'm happy to open up to Q&A now.
Okay, wow, that was quite something. That was a tour de force, Paul.
Well, there's a lot to talk about as far as 7D. So
I thought there was no way anyone could follow Cathal, but you just did.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so 2019 was quite a tricky year, but then you come in and despite COVID, you actually turned 2020 into quite a successful year. And you seem to have settled on quite a dynamic new strategy.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. 2019 undoubtedly very challenging, undoubtedly very difficult. And I was in the business beforehand. I should be straight. I was the COO, but obviously not leading strategy. And so when I was able to take the reins, I had a very clear view about what I wanted to do and what we needed to do differently. And we worked really, really hard. And I say we because it's an absolute team effort. And you cannot underestimate the scale of the change that we've gone through within the business and the effort the team has put into doing that, and the commitment, in very difficult circumstances through 2019, was absolutely vital. Off the back of that, what we've really done is created the best possible base to kick this business on. As I've said already, we're targeting operational profitability by the end of this year. Anything we do on top next year at 90% gross profit margins with these kinds of deals.
And you definitely think you're going to achieve. You definitely think you're going to achieve profitability by the end of the year.
Yeah, that's the plan. That's the plan. So we're excited about that. And that'll be the first time ever in the company's history as a public company. So and that's something we've been striving for some time. So to deliver that and then add the very exciting and vibrant pipeline as we have onto our top line with very high gross profit margins, it's a great place for us to be. So extremely excited about where we're going, as well as proud of the work we've done.
Okay, the most asked question is, who is the global technology company? I have 5 names, all of whom escape me. Okay. But that's what they all want to know.
Yeah, I do follow the chat boards and just to see what the feedback looks like, and I do see that discussed quite a lot, and I cannot name who they are. We're under confidentiality agreements not to do so, but I get that's frustrating for everybody. I mean, what I could say is that to have a company of that scale choose to work with 7digital is an absolute validation of not only the work that we've done in terms of turning the business around, but also how they view our product and our technology, that they are prepared to enter into a contract with us at the scale that they're operating. That's an absolute validation of the work we've done and where we're heading. But beyond that, it's very difficult for me to say very much more. I'm sorry I can't. I hope we can in the future down the track, but the timing of that I don't know. But for now, I'm afraid you'll have to wait and see.
You would make a lot of people happy if you did.
Okay. I'm sure I would. I'd love to. I'd love to tell you all right now, but sadly I can't, I'm afraid.
Okay. Clive Bonney asks, can you be involved in the new growth in vinyl? Not quite sure what he means, but as a lover of vinyl, and indeed, yes, we're both lovers of vinyl.
Yeah.
As a digital streaming business, how can you get involved in vinyl? Oh, there you go. There's a conundrum.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that question, or we should probably think about it before I gave one. But I think the vinyl revival is real, but in percentage terms of the overall global recording music industry, it's still fairly minuscule. I think fairly small. It's absolutely growing. The role of streaming, digital and analog, and how those two worlds collide. Yeah, there's been some initiatives in the industry before to try and bridge those two gaps. I think the experience of digital music consumption and and the vinyl experience, I think, though, at the moment are altogether quite different.
Okay.
You know,
what would your average demographic be, would you say?
Whose average demographic?
In terms of your
7digital's clients.
Yeah, 7digital's, yes.
Well, so 7digital is a streaming business, so you know all our clients are offering music streamed for different kind of use cases. So take the fitness example, Apex. It's around high energy pumping music being streamed, for a fitness class. Whereas you take the vinyl experience, it's much more about the sound, the warmth of the record, and looking at the artwork. You know, those two worlds don't necessarily collide too easily. I don't know if that answers your question or not, Clive, but it's a good one.
Yeah, okay. Which takes us to Francesco Cicero, who's asked a couple of questions. Here's one of them. What's the client user experience? Which is kind of where you were alluding to there. You were getting there. As a comparison, are you similar to Bandcamp? Are you going to support truly HD audio standards or just compressed formats? All the kind of stuff that you and I as vinyl junkies love. You know, high-end HD is of interest. So discuss.
Well, Francesco, I'd say what I should be really clear on is as a business to business, Francesco, as a business to business company, our job is really about helping to enable our clients focus on what they're really, really good at. And we worry about what we're really good at, and that's managing the music and managing the rights around music. So our clients typically build services on top of our technology. So if you take Apex as an example, or Triller as another, Triller are solely focused on their user experience within their social media app that they build, and they just focus on that. All the heavy lifting around ingestion of music, storage of music, sending music, rights and reporting is everything that we manage. We're really good at that. Our clients don't need to be really good at that. So, we will support any different type of usage and business model on top of our technology because we've created that flexibility within it. So, we will serve, a Bandcamp, a streaming service, a subscription, a $9.99, a classical music, a niche jazz streaming service as we are, with a high-res catalog, with compressed streaming audio. Whatever those business requirements are that our clients have, we have the flexibility in our platform to support it out of the gate, simply by enabling a turn of an access key in our API, in our application layer within our technology. So I was a previous chief executive and the founder, a guy called Ben Drury, once said we're a bit like Switzerland. So in that sense, it gives you a view as to how we operate. We can serve everybody and anybody depending what your music needs are.
Okay, Mitesh Sisodia. It's your moment in the sunshine. With the global catalogue of music that 7digital has, what is stopping you from creating your own differentiated streaming service alongside the other offerings that the company has as a complementary source of income? There you go.
It's a really good question, actually. It's a really good question, and one we have had in the past. I think the key, however, is that to offer a music streaming service, you have to, particularly subscription streaming, which I think was the thrust of your question, Mitesh, like a $9.99 or a $5.99 like service. You have to have rights in place, and you have to have those rights in place with the rights holders, and that invariably means cost. And you will have to pay for every track that is streamed on a streaming service. You pay the rights holder, you pay the label, you pay the publisher, and that can be 70%, of your revenue. So every $9.99 that somebody spends on Spotify, 70% is going out the door to the rights holders. So they're operating their business on 30%, cover all their costs, and they're not profitable, and who knows if they ever will be. So that the economics for subscription streaming aren't necessarily strong enough for us to want to go there. They work on massive scale. It works for Apple, works for Swallow, they're huge organizations. What we're more interested in is helping everybody away from that expensive rights area, the $9.99, and enabling different and new types of models. Yes, there are rights and royalties required, but our clients typically carry that and remunerate the rights holder community themselves directly. And we focus just on making sure our technology can support all of that wonderfully vibrant, dynamic music industry offerings that we're seeing emerge.
Paul, I have a lovely last question for you. Here we go, final question. You've got another couple of minutes to answer this in. So Will any new contracts be announced anytime soon, or is there any significant news flow coming? There's somebody who wants to trade you in the market.
Indeed. So the short answer is yes, there will be news coming. We've got advanced conversations with some companies in different verticals that some of which we talked about today. I can't give you the timing of that specifically, but yeah, we're close to completing on some interesting deals that we're looking forward to communicating to you all that I'm really excited about as well. So lots to come, and not just in this year, through next year as well. There's a lot happening. This industry is moving. Consumption of music is growing. These particular verticals we talked about are enormous and growing even faster than I could imagine. And yeah, there's a lot to be excited about as far as new opportunities for 7digital across live, across social, across fitness.
Paul Langworthy, CEO of 7digital, thank you so much for joining us tonight. That was fantastic, so illuminating. Two totally different companies, but completely enthralling both. And here we go for our third company, SolGold. SolGold is an emerging copper gold major. It's focused on discovering and defining world-class deposits in northern Ecuador on the Andean copper belt in South America. And if you know SolGold, you'll know that it's a wizard of a company. SolGold is listed on both the TSX and London main market, and it has a market capitalization currently of around £530 million. Miners have had a bad week, but they outperformed the mining sector. Nick Mather, CEO, recorded his presentation this morning from Brisbane. Yes, we got up early just for you guys. And Executive General Manager Ingo Hofmaier is going to take questions live here afterwards. Here's Nick's video presentation, and we recorded this live from Brisbane this morning.
Good afternoon, SolGold shareholders, investors, and other interested parties taking part in this webinar on SolGold. My name is Nick Mather. I'm the CEO of SolGold. I'm going to give you an update on where we are at with our major projects in Ecuador and refresh you in respect of our strategy for the objective of turning SolGold into a major copper gold producing company focused on Ecuador. At the moment, the share price of 25, 26p we believe massively undervalues this company. We believe that the Alpala project by itself confers an ultimate valuation of many billions of dollars once we get to the feasibility study, and we've obviously got a long way to go to close the gap between the current market capitalization of $700 million to get up to those levels. So our strategy and everything that we're doing on our work streams is designed to close that price to value gap. And there's a couple of key features which I want to bring to your attention that we believe are going to be instrumental in closing this gap up. First of all, remember where SolGold came from. We were an exploration company with a target at Alpala on the Cascabel concession in northern Ecuador, and we had nothing. We then set about finding Alpala and showing up a 3 billion ton ore body, which looked fabulous in the preliminary economic assessment. We believe will look even better in the pre-feasibility study. So discovery is in our DNA, and that's why we have a string of other exploration projects throughout the 3 parallel metallogenic belts over 700 kilometers long on the Ecuadorian sector of the Andean copper belt, one of the most prolific copper resource and producing belts in the world. We are active in the field at 2 of our very high-ranking targets at La Hueca and very importantly Porvenir, and we expect to be able to update the market in the near future about the progress that we're making there. We're very excited by the upside that these projects offer, and we believe that they will be transformational for both SolGold and for Ecuador itself. In respect of Alpala, we're deep in the final stages of completing the pre-feasibility study. As you can well imagine, a project of this size and scale, around about $3 billion worth of capital development costs, requires a lot of very detailed studies, and very importantly, they focus around the mining plan of a very large block cave underground mining operation. And to do that, and do it with the plan it with the confidence that's required by the world's financiers, and we need to very much focus on making sure that we have a reliable mining technique, and that requires a lot of detailed geotechnical work. So geotechnical work is something that we're putting a lot of effort into. We've got 6 drilling rigs working in Alpala at the moment. This will be scaling up to 15 over the coming months. And this is all designed to collect data to complete the detailed feasibility study, which we're hoping to come out sometime late in 2021. In addition, we're also completing other work streams around metallurgy, logistics planning, tailings disposal, infrastructure, and of course the detailed mine plan and metal production schedule that will come from bringing all of these disciplines together. So COVID has impacted on our ability to get this done as quickly as we liked, but we will be putting out an announcement in the near future about the progress on the closing stages of completion of the pre-feasibility study. The pre-feasibility study is very important because it will provide the market and the world's financiers with a much higher level of confidence in respect of the financial outcomes for Alpala, and we're very excited about the outcomes from the study. Of course, a $700 million company developing a $3 billion gold mine and copper mine sounds like a very tall order, but in the case of Alpala, because the cash flows look very spiky towards the front end, it's a banker's dream. The very high net present value, the high internal rate of return, the fast payback are all things that debt funders look for, and in an environment globally where we have very low global cost of capital, debt is a very important part of the development funding mixture that we're looking at for the development of Alpala. We have made progress announcements in the past about the proposed structure of the funding and the progress of the funding for the development of Alpala, and we hope to sometime in the next couple of months put out a further update. But the development of the funding package will take place in conjunction with the completion of the feasibility study, and we hope to bring the feasibility study to completion along with the funding package and all the permitting. And that way we should be able to arrive at a very fast development decision for Alpala soon after we get to feasibility sometime at the end of 2021. So we're fast tracking this project by running all of the component work streams in parallel, and that's a very important part of our overall strategy. Our strategy around financing Alpala is to, in parallel with the pre-feasibility study and the feasibility studies, put a conditional financing package for the entire project-based financing of around $3 billion in place. So we'll be doing that off the back of the project value rather than the market capitalization of the company, so that the market and the shareholders and investors and financiers can see that there's not going to be big dilutive, cheap equity raisings coming along to provide the equity portion of the financing for Alpala. So we'll put those agreements in place over the next year, but they'll be conditional on completing the final feasibility study and based on the net present value that comes out of that study. Along the same lines, we have been careful not to have to swamp shareholders with dilutive cheap equity raisings, which is why we did the Franco-Nevada $100 million 1% royalty financing to provide the funding to take the project from its current state to the completion of feasibility. The alternative would have been to raise $100 million in equity, which largely would have come probably from Newcrest and BHP, thus eroding the takeover premium that all shareholders should enjoy, and diluting everybody by around about 20%. So the Franco-Nevada funding, although criticised by some of the large companies, was very, very beneficial to shareholders and had a very small impact on the net present value of the project in SolGold's hands. And so we're very glad we've done it. It's settled with Franco. We've got the $100 million in the bank now, and we're busy working up the drilling activities at Alpala so that we can collect all of that very important geotechnical data to inform a very detailed and reliable underground block caving mine for the feasibility study. So that's why we did the Franco deal, and that's why it's good for all of the shareholders of SolGold. The other really key feature for the company that we're putting a lot of time and effort into at the moment to bring the board and the management team up to a level that will continue to inspire the world's financiers to provide us with financing to develop this project. And to that end, we're making additions to the board which will address increased independence, diversity, and an enlarged skills base on the board. And we're hoping to make, again, some announcements in the next month concerning additions to the board to address those corporate governance requirements that are so near and dear to all investors, and rightly so. The other feature that we're addressing in the company at the moment is our takeover bid for Cornerstone. We have a takeover bid for Cornerstone Capital Resources, which is the minority shareholder in Exploraciones Nova Mining SA, or ENSA, and that company holds 100% of the Alpala project. We believe that our takeover bid is very beneficial to the shareholders of ENSA, primarily because, the shareholders of Cornerstone, primarily because it's going to very much relieve them of the financing risks that would otherwise face them as we bring this project towards feasibility and start to need to throw very large sums of money at it. Cornerstone aren't able to use their interest in ENSA to secure any debt positions, and we believe that equity raisings for them would be incredibly dilutive. So we continue to commend our bid for Cornerstone to the Cornerstone shareholders, and we'd like to point out that our exploration projects through Ecuador will take SolGold to a new level and much higher valuations, and that this will result in rewards for Cornerstone shareholders if they come onto the SolGold register. So the bid expires in mid-October. We continue to recommend it to Cornerstone shareholders, and we'll be very happy to welcome them onto the SolGold register. So just to reiterate, our main elements of our strategy to transform SolGold into a major copper gold producing company in Ecuador is based on discovery. It's based on funding the Alpala project using a mixture of largely debt and offtake related instruments, and we're making very great progress in rounding up the $3 billion that's going to be required to do that. We're running all of these processes in parallel so that we can get to a fast development decision by the time we complete the feasibility study sometime late in 2021. The additions to the board are very important, as I mentioned before, and we'll be looking to very much increase the diversity and the skill base on the board, at the same time that we're increasing the management skills of SolGold to transform it from just a explorer to an explorer, developer, and ultimately miner. And it's SolGold's dedication to Ecuador that is engendering such support and endorsement from Ecuador at all levels, from individuals to families, communities, provincial governments, and national governments, because we've made it clear that we're in Ecuador for a long time. We're there to help Ecuador help us. We're there to help Ecuador see its economy repaired. We believe that just Alcala can represent ultimately some 4% of the GDP per annum in Ecuador. And if we find a string of these things, five tier one projects throughout our very exciting project portfolio throughout Ecuador, then SolGold can become a very important and major part of the Ecuadorian economy. So I commend the company to you all. We are working hard to demonstrate that we will be able to develop this mine. We will be able to staff it and manage it, and we will be able to finance it. And we believe the pre-feasibility study, which will be coming out soon, will demonstrate that with increasing confidence. And we're very, very confident indeed that in the not too distant future, we'll be able to update the market on what we believe will be very significant discoveries in some of our exploration projects in the rest of Ecuador. So thank you very much for having SolGold on your show, and we look forward to more detailed updates in the near future. Thank you.
Okay, many thanks to Nick Mather there for joining us from Brisbane on VT. Now, are we going to get Ingo? Can we have
Donald,
Ingo?
can you hear me?
I can hear you, but we can't see you. You need to give us your video, Ingo.
I can see this as well, but I want to start my video and it says you cannot start your video because the host has disabled it.
That's one for Mike. Do you want to deal with that, Mike?
Okay, perfect.
Here we go.
So here we are.
Greetings, Ingo. Let's start again.
So yeah, we're really happy to be here. I mean, I love to read the debates in London Southeast. I hope we can get through all the questions. If there's anything outstanding, I really encourage shareholders to get in touch with us directly. I am and Eliza Michael, who runs communications, are based in London, so same time zone. So much easier to reach than Nick. And if you have specific questions to Nick, send it to us and we will discuss it internally and get it back to you. But really looking forward to the questions in the next 15 to 20 minutes.
Fantastic, Ingo. When you hear the questions, you may not be so looking forward to them.
Oh yeah, no, we're used to that currently in this context with some of our corporate shareholders and Cornerstone, so no worries.
Okay, so it's interesting times. Let me start with interesting times then. David Grundy, Fat Trader, and Ewan Hughes ask, I thought the PRS was due out tomorrow. Is this not the case? And if it is late, then how late?
Okay, so yeah, the PFS. So as Nick was saying, we have been catching up on the timeline. I think we were very fortunate that we had most of our consultants in the country early in the year before the lockdown. We missed some time, as we said to the market, because we couldn't get access for 2.5 months, and that delayed us on the geotech drilling. So it's not the most straightforward answer. I mean, all around me in my home office is final reading on the PFS, and we will inform the market in significant detail where we exactly are in the coming days.
Sure. Nick has said soon in as many different ways as it's possible to say soon. But
yeah,
are we talking weeks? Are we talking months?
Probably the first and the later. I mean, as I said, I mean, there's lots of the material lying around me. It's about tying it all together. Most of the stuff is in final stages, even components of the PFS. So we are not concerned about this at all. We have the team in place. and the team has been working tirelessly to get it to this self-imposed and very ambitious timeline.
Yes.
We will update the market, and then I think there will be a much more clarity about this.
How much has COVID impacted the workflow?
Now, in some areas, not at all, because we had all people in country. We could fly surveys, etc. So, for instance, in terms of tailings design, in terms of met work, that has progressed well. In terms of market studies, etc. The only area where it had, and this was a critical path item, where it had an influence was drilling for geotechnical information. As Nick says, this is all running again now for weeks. The data we are currently collecting from the 6 drill rigs, we don't need for the PFS. It's also, I want to make this very clear. So we have all the data that we needed from the field for weeks and now months actually with the study team, but they're pulling the geotech models together. And this is a final input that needs to flow through all the models one final time to finalize the ultimate mine plan, to finalize, so to say, certain elements that were higher level assumptions, for instance, in tailings flows, etc.
Nick essentially was making the point that you guys are going to be a major player, and in order to you have to build the infrastructure for you to be a major player and to have the analytics behind to support that 3 billion valuation which you put on the business.
Yeah, the infrastructure is actually, the physical infrastructure is actually one of our strongest points, and it's not something we have created. The country of Ecuador has been an oil and gas producer, quite a significant one, especially relative to its own economy. And they've reinvested a lot of their petrodollars, export revenues in physical infrastructure. For instance, which is one thing that benefits us massively. 70% of the electricity generation in Ecuador is hydropower. Of course, there's a lot of waters, and they have harnessed that. They're a big export of electricity to neighboring countries, and have one of the lowest electricity prices in South America, significantly cheaper than, for instance, Chile and Peru. So in that regard, we are actually quite blessed, especially at Alpala. Yeah? We have projects all over Ecuador. It's not always the same, but we have road access, we have plenty of water, we have electricity, we have a port nearby. So from that element, we have to build relatively little compared to projects of similar size. We, of course, need to build the infrastructure on site. We have already acquired the majority of land for that. We have done sterilization drilling. So that is well progressed. And we have built up, I think that's most important also in terms of the management team, we made 6 senior management hires in the last 1.5 years. So we have transitioned the organization from a pure mining as an exploration company to a part of the organization is really mine development now. And of course, the people have stayed on who had the exploration successes and are exploring. We're exploring at a couple of properties currently. And also there's exciting news, which we will release to the market in the next couple of days.
Okay. And Paul Stephanie asks, are you getting real engagement from traditional commercial banks willing to invest in Ecuador? And he says that Rio found it hard to finance, and I don't know how to pronounce this name, Untitled.
Okay. So I worked for Rio Tinto. I wasn't involved in the financing. I was involved in the acquisition of Turquoise Hill, or Ivanhoe as it was called back then. The project in Mongolia is definitely in a much more tricky political setting. I mean, there's similarities. It's copper gold. It's a big underground mine, but it's significantly bigger. And the holdups in Mongolia, and I don't want to dwell on this, was definitely political and significant changes. If you have followed, and I think there's a webinar with Minister Ortiz and Jason Ward, who is the president of ENSA, I think in the next 24 hours. The Ecuadorian government has been pro-mining for quite some time. So not only in this presidency, but also in the earlier presidency when they opened up the mining cadastre. They see mining, and this was already pre-COVID, as an area that can generate export revenues. It's a dollarized nation, so there's no devaluation of a currency in Ecuador. So that means they need dollars and they need exports. And as revenues in oil and gas were falling because of volume restrictions or falling outputs, they knew that mining had to step in. And then COVID came along, which was really a double whammy for Ecuador. First of all, tourism was a fast growing industry. That died away, and it was not just people going to the Galapagos Islands, it was people traveling widely. Currently, no one is really traveling anywhere on holidays to South America or any long distance travel for that matter. And the oil prices also collapsed. The Ecuadorian government had to go through a quite significant but very successful debt restructuring this year. But the condition for this is more direct investment and more exports in the future, and privatization. So what we don't expect is nationalization or a slowing down in permitting processes. Quite the reverse. Our impression is, and we have a big team in Quito that constantly interfaces with the government, that in one way things will get or have already become significantly easier because of COVID. Yeah?
Okay.
And in terms of the funders, probably a good question. I mean, we have been meeting with big project finance banks for a significant period of time, regularly providing updates on our project. And there was always a very, very strong interest in funding our project. And the key thing is it's copper, but also gold rich. So the gold provides a hedge if the copper price would be low at some points in the future. It's also quite a significant producer with a high profit margin, especially in the first 10 to 15 years, which of course gives confidence to lenders. And we shouldn't forget, I mean, in terms of OT, just as the reference, there wasn't very much done in Mongolia before, and politics was always an uncertainty factor. We probably have an advantage that we come in under Lundin Gold and Fruta del Norte. It's not as big, but it was a successful project for the company and for the country. And you have sovereign guarantees in there from Germany and from Finland. The product goes out to Canada, it goes to Scandinavia for processing, and most of the lending banks that lend into this sector are standing behind these guarantees. And we have been running an offtake process since the beginning of the year. Actually, it started almost a year ago at the LME week last October.
And how's that been going?
Oh, excellent. I mean, the product is an extremely well-suited concentrate for pretty much every smelter in China, Japan, Korea, Germany, Bulgaria, Spain, and Scandinavia. So you could run most of the smelters globally exclusively on this product. It's well balanced in terms of high grading copper, good sulfur and Fe content. Of course, has the advantage that it's high value because it has gold and silver in it, quite large volumes of it, and it's a very clean concentrate. So we expect to get benchmark terms with a couple of benefits, and on top of it, there's quite a lot of demand for this concentrate from, and the listeners who know this space will know that some Scandinavian countries, Germany, Korea, and Japan offer guarantee schemes in various degrees, either directly linked to offtake or offtake and investments. We have already produced concentrate in physical form that we have shipped to all 4 jurisdictions. They have been tested there. The smelters have confirmed our test results, which is of course great, but they've also started talking and bringing in their respective sovereign credit entities. And we are in various stages of working through this process.
Okay. Let me move you on, Ingo.
Yep.
It was interesting to hear Nick comment in his video that a couple of shareholders weren't happy with the royalty funding. Who were the shareholders and why weren't they happy?
Okay, so I think, first of all, probably most of the listeners here were definitely very happy with it. I've never met a retail or an institutional shareholder who wasn't happy. Quite the contrary, they were very pleased with it. The criticism basically came from one more than 2 of our corporate shareholders, and the view is relatively simple. I mean, we looked at three different work streams for this funding. We knew, and our corporate shareholders knew what the budget roughly would be. Yeah, so
And
it
who are
wasn't
your
a
corporate
secret.
shareholders?
BHP and Newcrest, and
Thank you.
we knew we could have three different paths to fund this. And one was equity, yeah, and one was the royalty streams. We ran a competitive process on the royalties. Franco-Nevada got that, but we saw other offers as well. So we were very convinced that that was the best one available in that space. And of course, we had close contact with our banks in November, December last year, and again early this year, to raise the money on the equity capital markets. The issues were election, Brexit concerns, low commodity prices, and as Nick said, it would probably have been a significant higher dilution than 20%. So from a pure economic perspective, it was almost a non-brainer. This was no equity dilution, and the project was valued at 4 or 5 times our current market cap at the point of time when we signed the term sheet with Franco-Nevada. So from that perspective, the dilution on the project value as announced in the PEA was a couple of single percentage points versus, and zero equity dilution versus 20% or more as our assumption was. And it wasn't even clear that you could raise $100 or $150 million on the equity capital markets in London and in Toronto. And it would only have been possible if BHP or Newcrest, one of them probably would have moved up to 19.9%. And that was really not something that the board wanted to undertake and to restrict the liquidity of the stock further.
When it comes to exiting the project, as I presume there will be an exit at some point, you're going to take it all the way, says Nick, but presumably there will be an exit at some point. Would BHP and Newcrest, are they the likely people to be involved?
I mean, major miners don't get involved to hold 15% forever. Yeah, I mean, that's very clear.
It's not their game.
We could have more corporate shareholders on our register if we wanted, but I mean, there's no space left anymore. We are currently running a defense process with Citibank that is now well progressed. We exactly wanted to progress it to the stage where we currently are at this moment, because the standstill with BHP comes off mid-October. There will always be an enormous, and the interest in the project has only increased. There was already a lot of interest when copper was 260 and gold was 1,300, 1,400. Now this is almost like a co-product mine than a byproduct mine, where you could say, if you're a gold producer, you buy it for the gold and you get the copper, which many gold producers have said is interesting. On the other hand, interestingly, many of the majors have said that they're more likely to also invest in precious metal mines. In our case, you get almost an equal mine for the first 10 to 15 mines in terms of revenue flows at current prices.
Francesco Cicero asks a really pertinent point here, which fits in quite nicely. Why are you alienating some of the large investors? And it means those two you've been discussing.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that we are alienating them at all. I mean, it's a little bit of a game over control. And yeah, there is probably companies that have taken a different path, and so to say, let one corporate in, and then he gradually goes up to 50% or more. We try to prevent this. And I think one of the two has more understanding maybe for it, maybe the other one hasn't. But as I think we all sense a little bit of a frustration within Newcrest. I mean, they discovered us in terms of corporates discovering SolGold. They supported us very early. We're very grateful for that. But there's also no special rights that they would get this at a cheaper price than anyone else. So there's clearly a little bit of a frustration that also went into the public space, and this is what we are currently debating here. So there's no strategy of frustrating any one of the corporate shareholders. We have pretty good relationships, in fact, with them. So sometimes this probably seems more acrimonious in the chat rooms than what it is in reality, I would say.
No, it's like Tory MPs and Labour MPs actually get on better than you might imagine, because they've got politics in common. At the end of the day, you guys are all miners.
At the end of the day, the conference, you go for a drink. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm looking for a nice final question for you. The people very, can I just say, okay, let's sum up. There's a good half the questions here are very cross with you. I have to say very cross with you that the PFS has been delayed. So
Yeah, I mean, see.
what would you say to those folks?
No, see, we are working around the clock on this. Deadlines in situations like COVID are sometimes difficult. It's not about pulling all the data together, so it's not an internal restriction. It is one work stream, which was the geotech, that's caused delays, and we were not able to catch up on this completely. I think that's a very straightforward answer. I mean, Nick is a shareholder. We all are option holders or shareholders. So from that perspective, our intention is to deliver on time and on target, clearly.
Okay, I've just seen a cracking question, actually. Let's call this the last question. Cornerstone. Do you expect Cornerstone to accept the bid before it expires?
It's a great question. All these questions are great questions. If you look at their share price, yeah, their share price has moved quite a lot. So someone seems to be thinking, given that it's a very, very thinly traded company, that there might be a chance of success here. And I think it would be fantastic for Cornerstone shareholders to consolidate now, because we are on track to build this and fund it, first of all. Once it comes to funding, they will find it incredibly difficult to fund their 15% stake of it. That's my belief. That's the belief of many. They can't collateralize or securitize their 15% interest in Ensa. They need to raise this in equity. Currently, it looks like this would be 2 or 3 times their market cap. That's not easy, yeah, especially for a company that doesn't control or has access to the site. Yeah, I mean, they haven't raised any money in the last 2 years. They were not able to raise any money. They were also not able to sell their project, which they have tried to do. So I think it is very compelling for both companies to consolidate, and they would also get access to exposure to our exploration upside. So I think there's additional upside for every single Cornerstone shareholder.
Okay, Ingo Hofmaier, General Manager at SolGold. Let's leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for being so open and honest with us, which we really appreciate. Australian miners are more open and honest than most, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, and always, I mean, get in touch, please.
Thank you. I'm sure the audience will. Now we have two more webinars.
Have a nice evening.
Bye-bye. And you. We have 2 more webinars to come this year, 27th October and the 1st of December. So do look out for those. And tomorrow we'll send you 2 slide packs and a video link for the entire event. And don't forget, you can check out all sorts of things on the London Southeast website. We do paid for and free data. And finally, we had over 400 people attended tonight, which for London Southeast is a record. And I'm very grateful to each and every one of you. Please do stay safe in these COVID times. And that's it for us. Thank you very much indeed.